Do you have too much blood? High blood pressure getting you down? Well, let us release that steam valve at Hacken's Blood Donation Centers. Are we associated with the Red Cross? Sure. Just come down to your local park under the bridge, alone, and find Hacken. We'll take care of the rest.
Is this a metal thing?
Yes.
Little taste.
David, what is this?
It's pretty thick.
Great.
I have to kill a lot of people. Just tell me what you want me to fuck.
I have big tits and a tiny vagina.
Oil me up, Daddy.
I can't believe that Bryce prefers big tits.
Mistletoe alert.
This is backcountry.
This guy was a real jerk.
How long can Ugo be pregnant?
Chomp, 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 chomp.
Oh, she's such a dick, David.
Okay, everybody, put on your corpse handling gloves.
Ew.
Hoodie Picasso.
Horror.
Hello, and welcome to Horror Movie Talk, your panel of expert hosts. Each week are me. I'm Bryce Hanson. I have a PhD in spookology, and across from me, via video chat, is Professor David Day, the foremost expert in scare no-nos.
Hi, guys. How are you? How is everybody doing this week? Well, how are you, Bryce?
Doing good.
Good.
I'm real excited about our episode today. We're going to be reviewing Let the Right One In.
Yeah, you gotta make sure, you gotta vet them. You gotta make sure
Modern classic.
they're safe to let in.
So before we get into the episode, just want to plug our website, horrormovietalk.com. There you'll find links to all of our social media and all the things you need to know to keep in touch, as well as how to support the show, like our store or links to our Patreon or links to Amazon, where we can get a little taste of whatever you spend there. We also want to thank our new patrons.
Dude, we have so many new patrons this week.
Right. We got Kelsey K, Edward H, Bradley, Stephen Salem, and Jamie. Thank you so much for joining our Patreon. They now get access to exclusive perks like our Afterpod, where you can hear Bryce have a depressive episode and David console him, and vice versa. Mm-hmm. And then you can call us at 682-253-4468 and leave us a voicemail. We post new episodes of the show every Wednesday, so follow us on your favorite platform, whether that's YouTube to see our smiling faces or on your favorite audio podcast platform. We start out every episode by giving a brief review and our score for the film. We score on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being a miserable dredge that makes you angry, 5 being an average film that hits all the expected marks, and 10 being so good it transcends genre boundaries.
We're all about transcending boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
Big time.
After we give our score, we'll get into spoilers and take a deeper dive into what we liked and hated about the film. So if you don't want anything spoiled too much, wait until that spoiler warning and you can bounce. Later on, we'll be playing a new game called Vampire Smasher Pass.
Oh.
And when we get there, I'll have to explain the game. It's well, at least to anyone that's not Gen Z, maybe.
Okay. The concept of Smasher Pass
Right.
is lost on Millennials Plus.
Yes.
Yeah,
obviously.
Xers don't get it.
Yeah. Okay, so we watched Let the Right One In. We're reviewing the original 2008 version in Swedish. I believe it's in Swedish.
Yeah,
right?
it's in Swedish. They say mycket, which is I like, or I mycket. Sorry, go ahead.
And it got my blood going. You can find Let the Right One In on Amazon Prime, Hulu, and a lot more. Like almost everything has it streaming, either ad-supported or not. If you haven't seen Let the Right One In, it's a new twist on the vampire tale that asks, what if vampires were pedophiles? Oscar.
What if? I feel like that's actually a pretty touched upon, Interview did it, right?
Yeah, I guess it did, didn't it?
And kind of like Bram Stoker's did it as well, a little bit, right? It was like questionable. I mean, Winona was pretty young.
I don't remember.
You haven't said one thing about my glow up.
Your glow up? I don't see gender.
I mean, look, I'm just trying to look nice, and you're over here just ignoring the shit out of me. I did this for you.
I'm sorry. You look beautiful today, David.
Thank you.
You honestly do. Have you been growing out the hair to get to this point? Was this the end goal?
I mean, it helps. It's all part of a thing, It's all part of a transformation, This movie is about transformations.
It is.
And listeners, you'll have to apologize. I am wearing my retainer today, so I have a little bit of something going on with my S's, but that's just kind of.
It's not an affect. It's literally like that's how he talks with his retainer in.
Yeah, it's tough. It's a big clunky thing.
Okay. So Oscar, a 12-year-old Swedish boy that is relentlessly bullied while he deals with his parents' separation. I didn't actually have a finished sentence there. It's about Oscar, a 12-year-old Swedish boy that is relentlessly bullied while he deals with his parents' separation. In the course of planning to be Sweden's first school shooter, he meets Ellie, the new girl in town that hates shoes and loves having the higher ground. Ellie is the stereotypical manic pixie dream girl who has quirky hobbies like puzzle collecting, communicating through Morse, and violently murdering people by sucking their blood. Let the Right One In was remade in English as Let Me In, but I'll tell you what, if you haven't seen the original, do yourself a favor and watch it in the original language. Not only are the performances a little better overall, but most importantly, the tone is vastly better than the remake. The sparse and brutal mise en scène matches mise en scène. I mean, come on, David. You're a movie reviewer. You should know that. So mise en scène is everything about the scenery or how people are placed within a location in a movie. So everything in the background is the mise en scène, which contributes greatly to the tone and the.
Why not just say backdrop? Because
that's the better term to use.
Is it because it's French?
No, it's because it's more accurate. That's what I'm trying to convey. You know about accurately portraying what you want to convey. I mean,
man, I tell you what, I think I do, but I constantly am misunderstood for being like the most specific and literal person you can possibly imagine through text. People are fucking constantly misunderstanding me, and I don't know why. It feels like they think I'm giving them mixed signals, but look at me. Do I look like someone who gives mixed signals to you?
The sparse and brutal mise en scène matches the sparse and brutal storyline. The stark, empty courtyards and public parks complement the empty and stark life of a lonely latchkey kid. At the heart of the story is a coming-of-age romance between two tragic characters that is very compelling. There is an impending sense of dread for all the main characters. You're rooting for them, but in pretty much every possible outcome that you can imagine, there's going to be tragedy.
Tragedy.
This film is an excellent entry into the vampire genre that shows that there's still compelling iterations to explore that don't rely on the Dracula archetype. It's a fantastic movie and really stands out and sticks with you. I mean, I've seen it before, and it's one of those that I remember, fondly watching, and in the second viewing it is as good or better than the first watching, and especially because there was some stuff I noticed in this version that I didn't in the first watch. I give it a score of 10 out of 10.
Holy moly. Look at you. You really like this one. You've talked about it in the past to me a lot. Or, more than most movies. I knew you really enjoyed this one. I figured you were probably going to give it a 10 out of 10. As I was watching it, so I had seen this originally when it first came out. Not in theaters, I don't think. I think this was like 2008, and somehow we streamed it. Like, we've been streaming since streaming was, like, we just gave up. As soon as streaming came out, we were like, yep, this is it. This is way easier. And so I watched it as soon as it came out. It was good. I have remembered it for what? Jesus, 15 years. And it's good. I will say that the pacing is pretty slow, and the the mise en scène is a little accidental Wes Anderson-y, and I mean, it's just it's an affected it has an affected perspective, which is just kind of slow and dark and brooding, and really focusing on relationships. It's not particularly scary if that's what you're looking for. It's more of a romance / coming of age / slice of life, kind of a drama, like a really dark drama. And it's really good at that. But if what you're looking for is something real scary, this isn't probably that night for you. Yeah, it's really good in a lot of ways. It's a little hamstrung by focusing on child actors, but it seemed to know that it was focusing on child actors and played towards their strengths really well. And they were not bad child actors by any stretch of the imagination. So with all that being said, I appreciate it to about, I think I liked it a lot more the first time around. I think I like it to the tune of about a 7 right now, but that's just kind of my level of enjoyment. So
what's your in terms of genre, where do vampires lay? Are you a fan of vampires, or is it kind of...
I mean, vampires are not scary. They just aren't, to me. To some people, and I don't think they're particularly intended to be particularly scary,
Well, I mean, I think the scares come from... Yeah, I mean, the scares come from the fact that they're like a dangerous monster that will kill you, but they're super seductive.
But they might have sex with you before they kill you, or after, or both.
They're the monster that seduces you to capture you,
right? And
has superpowers around their ability to seduce most of the time. So that's interesting. I mean, if you think about it, what if a werewolf was just super sexy? It's
You mean you don't find all werewolves inherently attractive?
I'm more into otters, but anyways, so I think that's also the other thing. It gets a couple points from me just because I'm a pretty big fan of vampires in general. There's a lot of vampire movies that I like just because I kind of like they're like the James Bond of
I knew that was coming.
Universal.
I almost lipped it. Almost lip synced with you where you were like,
they're like the James Bond of... It's like there's a little bit of, what's it called? Dream fulfillment or wish fulfillment, through watching it. It's yeah, everyone wants to be James Bond. And if you're going to be a monster, you would definitely want to be a vampire.
Really?
I don't know, So from the like universal monsters.
Boy,
I mean, Invisible Man, that's pretty compelling too.
yeah, but it's so hands off.
Yeah.
You know? It's so hands off. I think the Invisible Man is that's
Or
something
Invisible Woman.
The Invisible Man or Woman is something that a little kid would want because they don't know so much and you could get so much information. But it's like, what goes on in the girls' bathroom? Like,
Well, Carrie told us that.
right, pillow fights and tampon throwing.
Mm-hmm.
I think you may be right in terms of what would you want to be. I mean, yeah, it's definitely a vampire.
Yeah, it's like it's the monster that isn't on its face tragic, It's not like, oh no, what a horrible fate to befall him. Like with a vampire, you're like,
right.
Yeah, but it's not, doesn't seem that bad, They really
Right.
have to underline like how
You'd have to go
the
through 200
practicalities of
years. You'd have to go through 200 years of life to realize how shitty it would actually be. Like, to everybody on the outside looking in, it's like, yeah, hell yeah, it's great.
All right. Well, speaking of looking in, I don't know. If you're listening to commercials, you shouldn't have to. Come into the inner circle of our Patreon, and at a certain level, you get ad-free versions of every episode and early access as well. As soon as we finish editing, or as soon as Fart finishes editing the episode and we upload it, you get it. Also, check out our Horror Movie Talk shop. That's horrormovietalk.com/shop. You'll find stickers and tees and whatever we put up on the shop in the time to come. A lot of the designs are designed by our resident artist, Dustin Goebel. He's a professional artist who fucks hard. Man, I'm really gassy this episode. He also takes commissions for artwork, so keep that in mind if you want a custom artwork for Valentine's Day coming up. When is Valentine's Day?
It's
the 14th?
It's next week, yeah. So it's going to be in about 7 days.
Yeah. Well, if in a crunch, maybe Dustin will
Double
do a
price.
commission real
Double
quick.
price.
You never know. Go to Instagram and at dgoebel00. That's at DGOEBEL00 to make your artistic dreams come true. If you want to leave us a voicemail, call 682-253-4468, and you'll probably hear our response in a upcoming Horror Movie Horrors episode. But thank you for listening, and let's get into the spoiler section. Spoilers.
Hey, you know what? This is a Swedish film. I haven't heard from Magnus in a while. Our super
That's
fan,
right. Yeah, where
our
is
super
Magnus
fan,
been?
who is also the Denzian of the Filmklubben Swedish movie review podcast. He was one of the first people who talked to us, and I mean, he's active on the Horror Movie Talk group. He's pretty active, but we're just not getting a lot of back and forth with Magnus anymore. Has he moved on to greener pastures? Is he done being interested in us?
Has he been in the group?
Has he been eaten by a small child? It is the winter of his discontent.
Yeah, maybe he's just experiencing, seasonal affective disorder.
Sad.
Yeah, the last time he posted something was January 14th. I hope he's doing okay.
I do too. I hope a child hasn't leapt on him.
Let the right one in starts with the whitest boy in the world named Oscar. And if you were to guess, if you were like to put the two main characters like behind you here, Duck David. Yeah. So if I were to tell you one of those is a vampire, which one would you choose? I would definitely say Oscar, but he's not. So Oscar, we're introduced, and he's kind of a lonely boy. We see him getting bullied, and then he eventually meets Ellie. The whole idea of having a vampire in the Arctic kind of makes sense. There's this movie, and then there's what's the other one?
30 Days of Night.
30 Days of Night. I mean, it makes sense. Arctic countries, they have longer nights,
Yeah.
you know?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you don't get a lot of those equatorial vampires.
Right. Yeah, where's the
With a
Brazilian?
marimba
Yeah. Where's the Brazilian vampire movies?
and a Bloody Mary.
And the movie kind of takes its time to get into it. Like, we're shown Oscar, we're shown the kind of the familiar of Ellie before we really get introduced to her. So there's Haken, the older guy that moves in with Ellie, and he's just wandering around a park with his murder kit. And
So is he her familiar?
yeah, he
Yeah.
is not her father.
So had I not watched What We Do in the Shadows, I wouldn't be like super up on like all the tropes of like the very like that's a pretty deep cut trope of a vampire. Like, you know, yeah. Oh, for sure. Are you kidding? Like the first thing you think of when you think of a vampire is Dracula with a cape. I want to suck your blood. The end. Like
Right.
you don't think about like a familiar who goes out during the day and does all their dirty work, you know?
Well, I mean, Dracula introduced the concept of a familiar. His familiar was Renfield.
The meta in your head doesn't necessarily immediately like the biggest thing you think of is not a familiar.
Well, no, it's not the first thing you think of, but the familiars go part and parcel with vampire movies.
Is it a big deal in Bram Stoker?
Yeah, Renfield is his familiar. So
okay, go on. Sorry.
Renfield was like kind of the insane guy that is basically having his mind seduced by Dracula.
Is
And
that
also-
Keanu Reeves?
No. It's I don't know how to explain it. He's like an insane guy. He's in an insane asylum for most of the time, but is kind of like a lackey or wants to serve Dracula and I believe become a vampire. That's kind of another thing. I mean, it's not in every vampire movie. I'll say that, but it's in the first one as like an important feature. So I wouldn't say it's like novel. But yeah, I mean, he's introduced and you're not sure who he is because your first guess would be, oh, that's her father, you know, or caretaker or whatever, and not her slave. But he's shown attacking some guy in the woods, which has an interesting take. He's like, "Hey, what's that gas mask? It's halothane." It's like, "What?" And then he's gone.
Isn't it Halcyon?
I don't know. In the subtitles, it said halothane. I know I wrote it down. Maybe that's how you say it in Swedish. I don't know.
Maybe
I wrote it down wrong. I don't know.
I'm probably wrong. It seems to be a thing.
Halothane.
Halothane.
It's
See,
a
I am
general anesthetic.
Don't mansplain it to me anymore.
He like strings up this guy and is bleeding him out like a deer, and then a girl and dog stumble across him, and so poor Hacken, he is not the best familiar, and he's got a lot of missteps.
He's trying, but like subtlety is just not his suit. He's like,
Right.
oh, look, I just killed this guy. Like, I am going to bleed him under this street lamp. Like, I'm going to tie him to a street lamp so that, like, we at night are highlighted. Like, we're in the middle of the light source. I got to see what I'm doing. And it's just like, every time he does this, it's like, yeah, but we got to get this done outside. And it's like, dude, get a little better. Yeah. It's, I guess you don't become a lackey by being like real together.
Mm-hmm. So we're showing Oscar, and he's like kind of daydreaming of stabbing the bully. And that's when he's got a knife and he's stabbing a tree and whatnot. And then Ellie shows up on the top of the jungle gym, the Dungle Dim, and that's what it's called in Middle Earth. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it sounds like a elvish word. And this scene is kind of like an important set piece for the movie. It kind of defines the tone and the relationship. And so it's set in this like super sparse, common area. What are we calling it?
Yeah, like the courtyard.
The courtyard with like the lamest jungle gym. It's just like one, set of pipes to climb up on. It feels very like Soviet era, and it's the story takes place in the early 80s and has a lot of not quite but almost brutalist architecture. Everything's sparse, everything's blocky, and there's not a lot of stuff going on in any of the areas. Like even Ellie's apartment is, super sparse, and like it doesn't even feel like someone lives in there. And that's what most of the areas in the film feel like. Even like the pool or these big public areas, it feels like there's only like a handful of people in an area that can accommodate thousands. And part of that's just because it's during the winter, and it all contributes to like a really uneasy feeling. Like, what's going on? Why is this like? It's like that clip in Simpsons. Where she's like, "There's something so unseemly about flying a kite at night."
Hello, mother dear.
Like that feeling is kind of throughout the movie, and that's what we feel in this first scene, because Ellie is on top of the jungle gym, and it's almost like predatorial position because has the higher ground, and it looks like she's could like just pounce on Oscar.
John Doe has the higher ground.
Yes, the higher ground. And so she's talking to Oscar and is pretty standoffish.
Yeah, she kind of immediately approaches Oscar and is like, "Hey, what are you doing here? I can't be your friend, by the way." like it's which is strange because it's a very kid thing to do.
Right.
And it is later revealed that she is obviously not a kid. She's a, 100-year-old person wrapped up in a 12-year-old body.
Right.
And so it's unclear as to whether or not her growth has been a little bit stunted. Her mental capacity has been a little stunted by being turned at such an early age, or whether or not she's just trying to communicate on a level that a 12-year-old might.
Yeah, there's like on the second viewing, I like came to appreciate a lot of like the subtleties in the movie, and a lot of things like I caught on the second time that I didn't catch in the beginning. And they're subtle, and then it brought up questions, and then when I researched it, I was like, oh, that was what they were doing. So
the
first one, was like Ellie's character of, she was turned when she was 12. And then the question is, does a 12-year-old vampire keep the brain of a 12-year-old? Because just developmentally, you don't become like a full-fledged, like have a full-fledged grown brain until you're like 25. If you study that kind of thing. And like there's certain things that a 12-year-old brain is really bad at doing, or a maturity level that exists solely because their brain is young, not just because they're dumb.
No, that's a good point. I think if you want to get all technical about it, you're probably onto something, right? Because you no longer have like necessarily, you're not necessarily alive anymore, right?
Right.
So, and obvious, that's evidenced by the fact that you stay the same age, whatever age you were when you, or even get a little younger, a little bit of a fountain of youth thing going on. But yeah, I guess technically.
And so a lot of like the actions and like the motivations of Ellie don't really make sense unless she has kind of a stunted emotional or intellectual growth, it's not like there's an intense she doesn't come off as like an ancient being with all knowledge that's preying on Oscar. She does through the course of the movie still feel kind of like an equal, and that's a really interesting take on a 12-year-old vampire. And I think even Interview with a Vampire kind of did that with Kristen Dunst, where she's immature, but they like
But she still fucks.
Right.
It's so fucking weird. Like, that's the creepiest part of these things. And this does it in like such a, god damn, this fucking fly in this room. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to see me being harassed by a fly.
It's just it's a transphobic fly.
Now I hate it even more. No. So like this movie deals with the like I'm a 1,000-year-old pedophile in not at all. It doesn't even deal with it. It just presents you with the facts, shows you two little kids who kind of appreciate each other a little bit. Oscar, it's clear that Oscar does not have like, he is still very vague in his sexuality or his sexual awakening. He's like, I don't like, this is so secondary to me. Like, I just appreciate you being my friend. Like, it's very, very, very clear that Oscar is just a prepubescent 12-year-old boy.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of in the middle there because he does like ask her to go steady with him. Like, it is,
yeah,
he is like.
But when presented with the question of like, what happens if we do go steady? He's like, I don't know. I guess we're closer friends. Like, we get to say we are going steady. The end. Like, which is such a 12-year-old concept. It's like, well, I don't know what then, I guess. But something changes, right? And it's just this vague, like, thought.
Yeah, so we can skip forward to the scene where she comes into his room. Like, she eventually decides, like, she's pretty standoffish, but then they, like, develop a friendship. And then she decides one night to, like, come into his window, and he lets her in. And then she gets naked and gets in his bed. And he's like,
God damn, you're fucking chilly.
You're naked and you're cold. And I thought to myself, like, take yourself back to being a 12-year-old boy. What would you do if a naked girl your age climbed into your bed randomly in the middle of the night that you obviously have, like, a crush on?
I would make her sign a consent form. First and foremost, I'd ID her. and then make her sign a consent form. No, it's a good point, right? It's like, yeah, I mean, at that point, I had been, obsessing over little girls my own age since, like, I had little crushes on girls and big crushes on girls from the age of fucking 5,
Yeah. No,
I mean,
yeah,
constantly.
absolutely.
I had no idea what. No, actually, I did when I was probably in first or second grade. One of my friends showed me a Playboy, and I was like, "Whoa!" It just blew apart my little brain, and yeah, I was just like, I don't know what this is, but I like it. It was a weird, like, way getting introduced to like weed way too early. Like, it's wrong, but it happened.
Yeah. This is one of the things that, like, it's it's really dangerous. It's really dangerous ground to walk on, but I don't think as Western society, like, we allow ourselves to remember how sexualized we were at a young age, or how early sexuality, appears. Because I remember, like, kindergarten, there was a girl I had a crush on invited to my birthday party, and I was, like, really excited about it, and grew up in the early ages of the internet, so I mean, I was like, in the same time I was playing Carmen Sandiego on floppy disk. I was playing with my own floppy disk with, like, slow loading image porn on the internet. And I just feel like if I was 12 and a naked girl crawled into my bed, I would have come 5 times before she got a foot in. Like, it would just be.
And then you'd constantly be like, you're like, from the rest of your life, you'd be haunted by the fact that every girl you got with, their feet weren't cold enough. And you're like, could you, like, and you're like, I don't know why, but you need to be ice fucking cold.
You know what? It's not a problem in my relationship. It would be, if that was my fetish, I married the right person. Aaron, it's astounding. She'll be wearing woolen socks under a heated blanket, and if she touches my leg with her toes, I can feel the coldness through the sock. It's
neuropathy
amazing.
Problems.
No neuropathy problems at all.
Anyway, so there's a certain blindness, and that's, like, one of the things that's kind of endearing about Oscar, but also, like, a little confusing. It's like, well, what's he getting at here? Like, why is he so... He's obviously enthralled with Ellie, but he's not, like, all up ons, I guess. Anyways, so skipping back, Oscar is shown in school, where apparently in Norway every class is about murder or, like, serial killers. Like, the 2 times we were showing him in class, the first time it's like a police officer is in the class asking about, like, what was the question? Oh, like, someone was murdered, but someone was found in a fire, but they found out that the person was murdered before the fire, and how do we find out? And Oscar, like, gave the correct answer of, like, well, if he didn't have smoke in his lungs. And the officer's like, good on you. Like, where did you learn about that? It's like, reading. And then, like, the next class we see him in, they're talking about the latest murder in the community. And you're like, is this all they taught? I mean, do they learn math? Or is this just why, the Scandinavian people are so severe and, stoic? It's like, no, your education consisted exclusively of true crime. Well, I thought it was funny.
Moving
on.
There are severe people, and you would know. Are you not some degree, Norse? What are you? Look at
I mean, I'm basically almost half Norwegian. I mean, my dad's parents.
What's that other half?
I mean, England, Scottish.
Fucking blonde hair, blue eyes over here. Goddamn.
Yeah, like my
Like
grandparents.
Hitler's wet dream.
I think my grandmother on my dad's side might be. I'm pretty sure she's 100% Norwegian because they like immigrated. Their families immigrated into the U.S. over in like the Midwest.
Got to build that wall between here and Norway, I guess.
Let's see. Oscar is kind of shown as being the archetype of a school shooter, like being bullied on constantly and kind of obsessed about murder and like pulling clips out of newspapers about like serial killers and liking his knife and imagining. So it's kind of a weird relationship where it's like, oh, this kid is the kid obsessed with death and killing, and he meets a vampire. It's a match made in heaven.
I have a question for you because I just found myself being curious about this because I knew you really enjoyed this movie. And as I was watching it this time, I was thinking, oh, well, maybe this hits home for Bryce. Were you bullied, or did you have these did you have like a lot of experience being, like with this like wish fulfillment stuff, like not necessarily shooting up a school or like stabbing somebody, but like getting revenge? Like, was any part of this bullying or revenge stuff any part of your life at all?
No, not as in like actual bullies or like. I mean, middle school is rough for almost everyone. There's a huge like imaginary audience. I remember crying in middle school and like asking to be homeschooled because I just hated it so much. I was the fat kid, and I mean, I don't think there was anyone that was like particularly picking on me, but it was definitely like, side comments or being made fun of in general by, kids that are consider themselves better than you or whatever, or the cool kids. But no, it wasn't like I never got beat up. I never got particularly singled out. But it was still miserable,
Okay, well, that rules that out. I've got some nice Norwegian men behind me now. That's kind of cool. Yeah. Did you know them?
No, I don't know them.
Maybe Magnus does.
I think Magnus is one of them. I think Magnus is the one on the right. So Oscar and Ellie kind of develop a relationship. He needs to work on his game a little bit because his opening line is "You smell weird." But eventually they develop a close friendship. It's pretty interesting. Like throughout the movie, Ellie is shown in different stages of hunger, and so she looks pretty beat up and sunken in when she hasn't had blood for a little while, and then looks super like healthy and youthful when she has eaten. And kind of the B storyline is between her and her familiar, and Hacken like kind of fucking up a couple times and feeling really bad. And this is another area where it was like, oh, I think I am catching on the undertones of this. And then when I researched it, it was confirmed. Like there's one moment, or a couple moments where Hacken is watching Ellie and Oscar, and he doesn't seem super happy with it. And also at one point he asks her to not, go out tonight with Oscar when he's going, he's going to be hunting for blood or whatever. And did that come across as anything weird to you, or did that feel just protective?
Yeah, it did feel. This movie plays a lot with hierarchies and relationships and hierarchies in relationships, right? And that's that's like the opus of this movie is like, what is your relationship and who's got the power in it and who cares about what and this kind of thing. And so you have that with Oscar and the bullies, right? Where Oscar is actually like a grade A bullied kid, like the best kind of victim for a bully, right? When he is bullied, he keeps his mouth shut. He barely even whimpers when he is beat with a whip. He keeps his mouth shut. He allows them to do what they need to do. He doesn't even tell on them to his mom. He's a perfect archetype to be beat up. Whereas when he flips that relationship and he whips the kid one time in the head, the bully just breaks down into big sobbing, I can't, I have to go to the hospital. He's total bitch. And that's how, again, that's another interesting, weird little relationship thing with Ellie and her familiar, which is like, clearly takes orders from her. Like, he is her subservient servant. Also, he appears as a 50-year-old male who is her father, and he acts that out a little bit. But what's the dynamic there? You know, it's all kind of up in the air, and everybody's kind of always playing with who is in control, kind of.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's the thing that, like, jumped out at me is, like, there is something, you know, he doesn't have, like, a father relationship with her, like, even when he's serving her, or, like, when he asks, like, the most interesting part is when he asks her not to go out with Oscar that night. And I was like, because that doesn't seem protective, because obviously Ellie can take care of herself. And so I'm like, well, what's the backstory with her and this guy? And I looked into it, and apparently in the novel that this is based off of, and I think it alludes to it in Let Me In the remake, or at least in a deleted scene, that they met when he was 12. And so he was basically Oscar, and he joined her and has been living with her for decades. And I think there was probably a similar dynamic, like a romantic kind of relationship dynamic. So it's when he's looking at Oscar, he's looking at like
the new up and comer.
Yeah,
that's so fucking weird. If it would be sexually threatened by a 12-year-old boy, it'd be like,
yeah, which
this
also
kid doesn't even know what we're doing. You know, he's just like, he's getting beat up at school. Like, he's got bigger fish to fry, literally.
And also in the novel, there's a pretty big aspect of that sexual or desired relationship between him and her. So the pedophilia undertones are much more heavily underlined in that storyline. I think that's a main part where at some point he's like, I'm going to go out and get you blood, but when I get back, you got to have sex with me. And that turns bad somehow. Anyways.
Yeah, this seems like the kind of story that would play with all that kind of stuff just for the sake of playing with it, just for bringing it. It doesn't seem like there's any like necessarily like moral stance or something like that. It's just like, how do relationships work? It's weird is the answer, kind of like, it's, who knows? It's complicated.
Right. So as Oscar and Ellie's relationship kind of matures, she gives him more advice about dealing with the bullies, which is very simple. Hit back. Which ends up working pretty well for a while. And they go on a couple dates. He buys her some Necco wafers, and she immediately pukes. which calls into question, is that because she's a vampire or the fact that they're like Necco wafers?
They're actually disgusting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you like some chalk to eat?
Oh, dude. Oh, dude. Oh. Rad, dude.
There's a couple moments in the movie that stand out in terms of like shock value or gore. The first one is the familiar when his second attempt at getting blood for Ellie fails. He's like,
I'm such an idiot.
His plan B is to pour acid on his face.
Yeah.
Which I'm not sure what the intention for that was, if that was like a suicide attempt or if he was like somehow trying to protect her by putting acid on his face, I guess. But then it ends up like Ellie visits him and drinks his blood and then he falls to his death. That one was pretty shocking. Like the long shot of his body falling and then his head hitting like the overhang.
Yeah, so like the effect is the same as Two-Face in Harvey Dent in Returns, and but better. Like it's a much better effect. This one is much more impressively horrific.
Yeah, the second like scene that stands out as kind of horrifying is the later there's a woman that's attacked by Ellie and she turns into a vampire and she basically commits suicide by having the blinds open and she like bursts into flame, which is pretty great. And then
that is like a very like Nightmare on Elm Street Johnny Depp death scene, kind of like the way the camera is set up, all centered in the room, and the room's so stark, and then like the blinds open and boom, she's like a goddamn torch. It's incredible. It was incredible. It was such a cool moment, and just horrific.
Yeah. And there's a lot of stuff happening. Like we can't go through everything, but there's a lot of like B storylines and just like kind of color stuff. Like there's a whole side story of Oscar's parents being separated, as dad being kind of an alcoholic, and there's a side story like we're showing a little more about the bully we find out is bullied by his brother, and so there's a pretty rich tapestry of stuff going on, and at the center of it is this relationship between Ellie and Oscar that slowly unfolds, and he finds out more about her, and she helps him in different ways, and it turns romantic. Okay, this is like the big spoiler that I didn't even catch at all the first time I watched it. So there's a couple times that she says, I'm not a girl, and you assume that's about her being a vampire, And then there's this pussy flash scene where it's so fast that it's hard to catch.
But don't worry, Bryce has slow-mo on his TV.
So when I was looking up like the background,
was doing my research,
in the original story, and what you're supposed to catch from that brief flash is that it's not just showing you, prepubescent pubes. You're actually supposed to see scars because Ellie is not a girl. Because when she was turned into a vampire, he was also castrated. And his actual name is Elias.
What?
So Ellie is trans, or at least a castrated boy vampire.
Oh my God. This
Yeah.
is kismet.
So that
Are you serious?
I'm absolutely serious. Yeah, I mean that's a main plot point is that Ellie is not a girl. Ellie is a boy, but he has been castrated and was castrated at the same time he was turned into a vampire.
I gotta say, they could have done a lot better job of making that very, very clear.
Yeah, I mean it's one of those things where it's like you don't want to dwell on it, you know, because
True.
like imagine if the director cut to like the crotch of an adolescent and then just started zooming in, like how uncomfortable that would make the audience. And no one would still catch it anyways because everyone would turn away. You're like, Jesus Christ.
Would they?
It was almost shocking enough. Well, it was shocking. And anyways, you can feel okay because I also in my research I found out that they used a mannequin for that shot. It wasn't actually a castrated boy.
Yeah, but
So-
the implication.
So you can watch that on repeat as many times as you want. You're not a pedophile. You're just looking at a mannequin.
You've got permission from Bryce. I, however, no. No, sweetie. Don't do it. You know, this. I appreciate this movie a lot more now. I'm going to tell you. Yeah, that makes it a lot better because it's inclusive. And it highlights our struggles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's big.
FBI, open up!
Oh yeah, I like your note here. We're almost done with this review. I like your note here. Oh boy, I sure do like living.
Yeah, there's
guy,
a scene.
I'm drunk and feeling good. I sure do like living, and then
Yeah, it shows like two friends who are like, I'm so glad that you're my friend and that we had a good time.
me
and
too.
that,
I love you, buddy.
that we're alive and living.
We are alive.
Anyways, I'm gonna go under this dark bridge. Oh, there's a little girl under here. I better help. So yeah, I mean, there's a little bit of like I'm a pretty big fan of Scandinavian humor, which is pretty dark and ironic. And this is one of those moments. And it reminded me of a scene from Norseman. I don't know if you watched this one, but I've shown this one to you before. And this is probably one of my favorite TV scenes of all time that really kind of sum up the humor of the show. I'm going to show it even if we're going to get a copyright strike because it fits in.
No,
with this
please don't.
scene.
Please don't. I don't want a copyright strike. I really don't. A lot. Maybe you could play the audio. How about
Never
we
mind.
do it on the afterpod?
Okay, we'll do it on the afterpod.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't want to get that ad revenue taken away that we don't have.
Well, I mean, so many of our videos have strikes against them because we play the trailer in them that when we are able to monetize it, we'll be able to monetize like nothing. I mean,
That's
unless
not true.
unless we alter it somehow or something.
That's not necessarily true.
Oh no?
Most of them, if we contend it, I mean, it falls under fair use because we're commenting on it or editorializing.
Every single time I do that fair use thing, they're like, "Yeah, but the person still said no," and it's like, okay, well, what do they got to?
Yeah, that seems like the exception for me. Whenever I do it, it seems like it's taken up. Or even if it's not, like it's, well, we're talking inside baseball too much.
Yeah,
Anyways,
yeah.
moving on. So there's this scene in Norseman where this one of the main characters is going out with a bow and arrow, and then it cuts to these slaves working out in the forest, and the guy's like, "Yep, reaching retirement age. I'm just so looking forward to really taking it all in, and you know, I really like looking, just really looking at things." And seeing all the things that the world has to offer. I'm looking forward to, looking at mountains and trees elsewhere. And I'm like, oh, well, that's nice, Sven. And he's like, huh, what's that out in the distance? And they're like, what? I don't see anything. I'm like, yeah, it's like two sharp things in the air. And then it cuts to the guy with like the arrow walking with the bow, like walking away. And then you hear in the background, like, ah! And it cuts to the guy and he's got like 2 arrows in his eyes. And he's like, they were arrows. Anyways, it's funnier in the clip. So let's skip forward to the end. The end features Oscar being the only one in the water aerobics class, which only serves to make you want to beat him up yourself.
Poor sweet Oscar. Like, he's so dear. Like,
Yeah.
when his aerobics instructor runs away because a diversion fire has been lit outside for the adults, one of the bullies who doesn't really want to bully but kind of does a little bit, is associated with other bullies, stands in for the aerobics instructor and like dances with Oscar, and Oscar's just like, hey, we're kids and we're having fun. This just goes back to that thing where it's just like, Oscar's a 12-year-old boy. Like, he's just 12, man. He just wants to have fun with other kids, and that's made hard by bullies.
Yeah, so at this point, like, Ellie supposedly has left for her safety, and then Oscar is alone at this pool, and these bullies have conspired. Mainly, the bully's brother that's bullies him is going to execute justice on Oscar in pretty brutal ways. This is basically, you're going to go underwater for 3 minutes, and if you stay for under for 3 minutes, you'll just get a little nick with this knife I have. Otherwise, I'm going to stab your eye out because you whipped my brother in the ear. And so they hold him underwater, and it's a pretty effective scene. And then we experience the massacre of these bullies in this pool from Oscar's perspective underwater, which, he has no idea of what's going on, but all of a sudden, like, the arm that's holding him down, like, falls into the pool.
It's such a brilliant scene. It's like such a great way to make the most of a low budget. Like, it's the best way to make Jurassic Park without showing any dinosaurs. It's like, whoa, that's so great.
Right. I mean, it is a pretty long movie, but I gotta say, like, it has decent set pieces spaced out throughout that kept me engaged, as well as, like, just the drama and the relationships. It was really engaging for me, and I liked all of it. Like, there was very little and there's a lot of depth to it too, and a lot of things that you can, like, look into and find out. Like, again, the stuff that I wasn't aware of was like, oh yeah, I mean, her development, like, as a centuries old vampire, is still kind of caught in arrested development because of her age when she turned, and her relationship with the familiar, the fact that she's trans, like, all this stuff, like, is like stuff that I found out on the second viewing, but is there in the movie. Like, if you look for the subtleties, it's there.
Like, so hyper relevant too now. Like, a 12-year-old trans kid who's a vampire. Like, there are so many suggestions just in that sentence. A 12-year-old trans vampire. Like, okay, so you're forced into the shadows. You're an old soul, but you present a young bot. Like, all this weird stuff is all suggested, and it's never directly looked at. It's just like, check out this. What are you gonna do with that? What's your head gonna do with that? And it's like, that's a great way to present it.
Yeah. I mean, it is actually questionable. Like, would she be considered trans? Like, is she actually? Is it trying to live as a female, or is that just, it's questionable, because No, I guess she is presenting as female because she's wearing female clothes, I guess.
That's all that matters.
Oh, the other we skipped over the best scene. I'm sorry. Before we end, we got to talk about like the scene where she comes to Oscar's door and she's like, "You got to invite me in," which is a vampire trope. And he's like, "Come on. Like, what's going to happen if I don't?" Just like any like motions are in, which, I mean, being fair, like that was inviting in if he's using a gesture. But in the terms of the movie, he has to actually invite her in vocally. She's like, "All right, I'll show you." She comes in and then she just starts bleeding out of every orifice.
Yeah.
And like through her skin. It's like, "Oh Jesus, you come in, please come in." So that's a memorable.
Yeah, and then
scene.
the title, "Let the Right One In," it does such a cool thing, right? It's like, again, it's just touching on every single relationship in the movie. Like, who are you going to let into your life? You know, who do you surround yourself with? Who are you going to make that choice about? You know, it's like his Oscar's dad is a real nice guy until his junkie friend shows up. He lets him in, and then that dynamic changes. You know, it's his aquatics instructor just being like, "Yeah, come on." You know, it's all the relationships is.
And even in terms of the bullies, like, you know, what
Right.
separates Oscar from the toadies of the bully? It's like,
yeah, the
they're
toadies don't want to do these things. Like, they
Right.
are tortured, but they have accepted the company of this dickhole, and they get it in the end because of it, because of their close association.
Yeah, or vice versa. He let them in, and now they're kind of trapped.
Right.
I don't know. So it's an interesting dynamic. So who would like this?
This is such like a fabulous drama, just generally speaking, that's just got such a great twist. This is much more general audiences than most of the, like, especially than like House of a Thousand Corpses or something like that. That's just hard horror. Yeah, I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, it's a must-see for anyone that's a fan of vampires, definitely. I think I would really encourage people not to be turned off by the foreign language or subtitles. Like, this is definitely one of those movies that's worth seeing subtitled or in the original language. I watched like probably about 20 minutes of Let Me In, and it's like watching a American remake of a British reality show. It's just so ham-handed. It's so like tries to make it into an action thriller that it's like, oh, this is gross. It's like all of the charm of the starkness and like the subtlety is lost from the parts that I saw of the remake. So I'd say don't be turned off by the foreign language. Like from all the accounts of people that have seen both, it seems like the consensus is that the original is definitely better. A24 fans are gonna love this movie, but I think again, I gave it a 10 out of 10, so I think everyone should see it. It's a great movie.
Quick 1-minute thing. Our review last week of House of a Thousand Corpses did get a lot of people riled up. There's a big post in the Horror Movie Talk Facebook group by Zachary L. that says, "Man, Bryce and David really dislike Rob Zombie. It's okay, though. I got tickets to see Rob Zombie and Alice Cooper this summer. And, I like Rob Zombie's music just fine. I just think House of a Thousand Corpses is hot garbage." Brian F. comments on that, says, "I thought the same. They were harsh. Also, don't think they realize Sherry Moon is his wife." I have tickets to see him as well. I knew Sherry Moon was his wife. She's been with him since like the early 90s, but she's also a fucking terrible actress. And there's a lot and I think in the review, we mentioned nepotism. That nepotism is the problem. I don't know of a situation where nepotism isn't a problem necessarily, but but anyway, lots of people. Look, if you like it, I'm so happy for you. Like, I want you to like it. It's just, it's not for us. you know?
Yeah. Probably the one that like cut hardest, and I realized like, oh, well, I actually do have to be better at that. Was some of our patrons were like, you know, the episodes where they like the movie are better because they're funnier. Like, yeah, I mean, I guess like I let the discomfort or like the dislike of the movie color the actual episode a little too much, where I'm like, I'm not going to try because this movie was trash. Why would I try making this episode good? So I have to be mindful of that. So I apologize for the episode maybe not being as funny because we weren't pulling out stuff, which there probably could have been funnier stuff.
We've
to
had
talk
a couple
about, but
weeks of really rough movies. Skinamarink, House of Thousand Corpses. Like, but we find ways to have fun, you know?
So let's move on to a new game I call Vampire Smash or Pass. Okay, in Vampire Smash or Pass, David, I have to explain this to you because you're old. So smash means fuck, and pass means not fuck. So would you want to fuck these vampires or not? So smash or pass. There's a lot of them. I don't think we need.
In my day, we weren't pussies about. You know, we didn't pussyfoot around. We just said it. Fuck, marry, kill is what we said.
Right. Yeah.
Not like smash, pass, or cash me outside or something.
So I think probably the best way to go about it. I've got a lot of these. So let's do the first half you, and then the last half I'll do smash or pass. Okay? I'm just going to play with these transitions.
Whoa.
Okay, David. Smash or pass? Miriam, played by Catherine Deneuve, from The Hunger.
Catherine Deneuve was in Revulsion?
Yep.
Yeah, so Catherine Deneuve in Revulsion and as Miriam, smash. Whew.
Eve.
Oh!
Tilda Swinton from Only Lovers Left Alive.
Oh my God. Okay, listen, if you're not watching on YouTube, you need to be to get the full effect here. What is that? Is that a skinned dick?
No, that's a blood ice pop, I think.
It gives me the piss shivers to look at her. No, pass.
Santanico Pandemonium
Selma Hayek?
from Dusk Till Dawn.
Is that Selma Hayek?
Yes.
Whew. I mean, do you have to ask? Really? Pass. Ew.
Right.
No, obviously smash.
Edward Cullen from the Twilight series.
Oh, dude, smash. Are you kidding? Look at those cum gutters. Wait, go back. Whew. He's like, he doesn't even have to use his hands to show you where to suck. He just pointed to it with his pelvis. His pelvis is just like, right there. Put your mouth on it. And I'm like,
Steve-O.
Dude.
John from The Hunger.
Is that David Bowie?
David Bowie. Yeah.
He was a vampire?
Mm-hmm.
Smash.
From the same movie as Catherine Deneuve.
What year was this?
80-something.
Wow. Smash. Yeah, smash. Are you kidding?
Okay, Jessica Hamby from True Blood.
Yeah.
Played by Deborah Ann Wolfe.
Did you watch True Blood?
No.
Oh, yeah. Smash. Smash.
Celine from Underworld. Played by Kate Beckinsale.
I guess. Yeah, smash. I don't have strong feelings based on that picture, but sure. Yeah. I mean, ladies.
Kate Beckinsale?
I like them. I like ladies.
Fox. Okay,
Ooh.
Count Orloff from Nosferatu.
Say it again. Who?
Count Orloff from Nosferatu. Played by Max Schreck.
Wow. Smash.
Absolutely. Akasha from Queen of the Damned, played by Aaliyah.
Oh, is that Aaliyah? Mm-hmm. Is she dead?
Yes. Well, I mean, she is a vampire, so she's undead.
No, I mean, is Aaliyah dead?
Well, we're playing Smash or Pass for the character. Is the important thing.
Just outside of the game, as an aside, I'm asking.
Yes, she's dead.
Okay.
Yes, she's dead. She is long dead. She's dead. She's no longer living.
Then definitely Smash.
Okay. Dracula.
Yeah, Smash.
Played by Gary Oldman.
Yeah, Smash. Big time.
Catherine Pierce.
Smash.
From The Vampire Diaries.
Yeah, Smash.
Gary Oldman in Dracula.
Smash.
Last one. Eric Northman from True Blood.
I talk about this all the time. Smash. All the time. Smash. Yeah.
Okay.
Eric
now
Skarsgård, are you kidding?
Now it's my turn.
Okay.
Gary Oldman from Dracula.
Ooh.
Smash.
That's a smash?
The Count. Smash. Louis from Interview with a Vampire. That's a smash.
That's a smash.
Ellie from Let the Right One In. That's a pass.
Okay.
Peter Lowe from The Vampire's Kiss.
Nick Cage, yeah.
That's a pass.
Oh.
Lestat from Interview with a Vampire. That's a smash.
Yeah.
Claudia from Interview with a Vampire. That's
Little Kirsten Dunst.
It's smash.
FBI, open up!
I think for legal reasons I'd say pass, but I mean Kirsten Dunst now.
Right, she's your age.
Right. Blackula from Blackula. Smash. Morbius. That's a pass.
Oh.
All of the Lost Boys. Smash.
Yeah.
The girl from A Girl Walks Home at Night. Smash. Bella from Twilight.
It's hard to look at.
That's a smash. And then, of course, the original Dracula, played by Bela Lugosi. That's a smash.
Yeah. Okay, I hope
Thus
you played
concludes
along. Hope you played along at home. Okay.
All righty. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
FBI, open up!
Thanks to our patrons, especially our new patrons, Kelsey, Edward, Bradley, Stephen, and Jamie. Go to our website at horrormovietalk.com. There you'll find all the links to all of the things and ways to support us. Thanks again to all our support in the background, Dustin, Fart Simpson, Mark, and Ruby, Max, everyone that helps out the show. We really appreciate you. If you want to call and leave us a voicemail, call 682-253-4468. And that's it for today. Bye!
We love you guys.
Good day, sir! Good day, sir! You lose! You get nothing! Is that raincoat? Yes, it is!
I just took a stroll through the scraggly woods.